I called this emergency meeting because apparently Father's Day is coming up.
What's that?
Mom reports that every year she buys a gift in a card and makes us sign it as if it was from us.
What? This is news to me. Do we get presents?
No, apparently unlike birthdays, Christmas, Easter, Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day, and Halloween, this isn't about us.
You just popped my brain.
Anyway, here's the bad news, buddy. Mom says we're old enough to figure this present stuff out on our own. We have to decide by tomorrow what we want to get, and then Mom will order it.
Just to confirm, he'll also be getting us gifts?
No, it's Father's Day, buddy. It's about us telling him that he's a good dad.
He wouldn't be a father without us. Maybe he could just get us a little candy.
I brought an extra pack of M&Ms from Easter last year. Focus!
Thanks, sis. I feel better already.
All right, no bad ideas. Let's get some brainstorming done.
Guys, can I come in?
No! Eureka!
All right, nice. Let's see what we got here.
Looks good to me.
I think it's best we make multiple interpretations on our data to make sure it's the best.
I agree.
What do you think, Betty?
One interpretation is we really love our dad.
Who needs multiple interpretations when we nail it on the first one? Great job.
Great work, sis.
Really? With the snacks again? I'll let Mom know about the decision.
Just to be clear, we're filming with the Wi-Fi, right?
Of course. Did you have to ask? Live from Studio A, somewhere inside the great state of Kansas, it's Leadership Late Night brought to you by the Kansas Leadership Center. I'm DJAJ, rocking the beats and certainly not up to anything suspicious in Dad's office today. Tonight's guest, pro golfer, author, and leadership developer, Deb Richards. Now, your host, my dad, and a man who should probably purchase a new swimsuit, DJ Whetter.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Leadership Late Night. I'm your host, as always, DJ Whetter. Thanks for staying up late for a little bit of leadership. Good to have Addison and Parker here at the DJ booth this evening. You are both very busy in my office today. Anything you want to tell me about?
No.
Fair enough. Well, an early happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. It's going to be a fun weekend celebrating with my family. We may even get a little camping. Don't worry, for those of you who know I love golf, I got my golfing in last Sunday. And let me tell you about my round. On number 2, I hit the pin. On number 4, I chipped in from 50 yards out for birdie. And on number 18, hit a beautiful flop shot right over the bunker, landed it on the green, and it was rolling, tracking for birdie, and just lipped out. Of course, I missed the par putt, shot a 92. Now, I know what you're thinking. I don't care what you did in your golf game, DJ. You know what I'm thinking? I know you don't care. But because it's Father's Day weekend, I can talk about whatever I want. Now, speaking of professional golfers, we have Deb Richards on the show tonight, and she is not only a pro golfer, an author, she is also a leadership developer, a very passionate executive coach, and we are going to have a fun time talking to her and diving into leadership development during these strange times. So without further ado, let's get to the show. I'll hit the desk. DJ AJ, you hit the beats.
You got it, Dad.
back here at the desk tonight. Thank you, DJAJ. Thank you, DJ Parker at the desk. We actually got him to hang around for the start of the show tonight. Big thanks to both of them. We had a lot of fun getting ready for the show, although they obviously didn't let me see any of that. I've been blindfolded for that intro, so I'm very excited to see what Father's Day has in store for me this weekend. Hey, we're going to get right into the show. Got a couple of things to do before we get to our interview with Deb Richards. I'm very excited for that. Excited to have the Richards family watching on tonight. And we'll get to that in just a moment. But first, I always like to have other people on the show to give some leadership lessons. I just think it's important to hear from more than me and the guests. So that said, one of my favorite teachers on this show, a man you just saw, Parker David Whetter. Take a look.
No. I don't care.
Leadership lessons.
Dad, I had a birthday. I'm 7.
My bad. Leadership lessons.
From a 7-year-old.
Sponsored by
Nobody.
This has been Leadership Lessons,
From a 7-year-old.
still sponsored by
Nobody.
Still looking for a sponsor on that segment right there. You'd think Grandma would have stepped up by now. I'm sure Grandma's got something she wants to advertise, Parker. You need to have a conversation with her. Well, it's time to bring out our guest this evening, pro golfer Deb Richards. And we had a great conversation just a little bit earlier this week. And she is just so fascinating. I'm so excited to introduce her to the KLC audience. She's out of Kansas City right now. She's had a career that's taken her around the globe for golf and for work. I'm excited for you to hear her story and to hear the wide-ranging conversation that includes COVID-19, the circumstances, and our work beyond the death of George Floyd and beyond. Take a look as we interview tonight Deb Richards in the Leadership Library. Deb Richards, thank you so much for joining us in the Leadership Library. Great to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be in the Leadership Library. That's one of my favorite, little ground holes to go into.
For the audience, tell us a little bit about yourself. And you're now the CEO of Burlap Leaders, a published author, a professional golfer, all those things. How does someone go from professional golfer into the work you're doing now? Paint that picture for us if you can.
It's actually an easier translation than you might imagine. But I grew up in Manhattan, Kansas. My parents were at K-State and very modest upbringing and played a lot of sports growing up. And we decided as a family to take up the game of golf and join the country club. And that was kind of part of the bargain, that if we joined the country club, that we'd take up the game as, a family sport. And so we did. And the cocky little athlete, me, who played all these other sports very, very well, got a slap in the face when she got introduced to golf because I was terrible at it. And I was probably the one person in the family that could have very easily walked away from it and just continued playing all the other sports. And I had the incredible good fortune that Ron Schmetterman was the teaching pro at Manhattan Country Club. He took me under his wing. He made an offer to my dad and said, look, I think Deb has a lot of talent. I'd really like to teach her how to play the game. I'll never charge you a dime, but it has to be because Deb wants to play. Wow. And so my dad comes home and tells me that story, and that was the coolest thing I'd ever heard, because at that point in my life, I was 11 years old, and I would tell you that the thing I reveled in and really got the most energy out of was being coached. I love to be coached.
Deb translated that great coaching into a 20-year career on the LPGA Tour, with 70 top 10 finishes and 5 victories. She's also the 1984 U.S. Women's Amateur Champion and a collegiate national championship golfer at the University of Florida. However, it was her first professional victory in Rochester, New York, that allowed Richard to find her life's purpose.
And I don't know if all your viewers are going to know this, but in professional golf, all events are 501c3 events, so they're nonprofit events. So we raise money for the communities where we play to improve those communities. Well, in Rochester, New York, the benefactor were summer camps for disabled kids. And after I won, they invited me back to go to the camps. I said, I'd love to go. And so in visiting the Sunshine Camp, they had all these signs and flowers and balloons and sang me the camp song and did all these cool things. And here was my transition and translation of what I was doing in my life that really got me from that point to where I am today. I walked into that camp so proud and excited to have conquered my dream. I was now an LPGA champion. And I went to that camp champion golfer. Those kids could care less. All they knew is I had done something that a bunch of other people thought was pretty cool. But the thing was, I took time out of my day to go tell them they were special. Everything in my life changed that day. And I met a little girl. She was 8 years old at the time. She was voted on by the other campers to give me a bouquet of flowers on behalf of all the campers. She's this little bitty thing, and she walked up to me very gingerly, and she was holding the flowers, and she was shaking, and I squatted down because I wanted to get eye level with her, and she wouldn't say a word. And I reached out and I said, are these for me? And she just nodded, and I gave her a hug. And I've often said, I said, she's the most fragile child I'd ever held in my life. And at that moment, my life changed, because my purpose was no longer about being a champion golfer. That's what drove me. I had a real passion for it, and I loved it. Nothing changed about that in terms of my pursuit of golf. What changed was I had a purpose, because I now knew I had a platform for change.
Beyond finding purpose, Richard also found lifelong leadership lessons on the golf course.
In order to be successful at golf, you have to be present. Okay? If I am fully present in an experience, I'm not only giving the best of myself, it is also the most fulfilling any experience can be, because I'm all in. I'm not distracted. I'm not anything else. In everyday life, every experience is like that. I don't care if you're negotiating a deal, if you're having a difficult conversation with someone, or you're just mentoring somebody. The greatest thing you can do is be fully there. And perfection doesn't exist. And I write about this in Trust Understanding My Why, because it was a trap I got caught in. Because I felt like I was always chasing this perfection, and it took me a long time to realize it doesn't exist. And the more that we chase perfection, the more we lose out on the little incremental learning that's actually happening along the way, because we're so focused on the perfection that we're not absorbing all that other learning that's available.
While still driven to pursue golf, Deb also sought to create change. She's started 3 nonprofits, written her book, and now works with everyone from college students to executive women using a leadership curriculum she created based on her life's experiences with help from the Staley School of Leadership at K-State.
Obviously, I bring groups of people together and I travel to do it. So in the COVID world, I'm pretty grounded. I've done some Zoom things and different things like that, but that's not really where the core of my work is. I'm around being with people. So I work with leadership teams on lots of topics, everything from trust to perspective to understanding your strengths individually and the collective. I get fired up. I love helping people see the best in themselves, because when you really see the best in yourselves, suddenly the rest of the world is non-threatening to your own pathway. The other avenue that I work with, which is really me bringing my golf forward. So I do these series of events. They're usually four events in a series, where I work with executive level women, and we spend half of our time on golf and we spend half of our time in executive coaching. And there are many, many outcomes we build towards. I want more women using golf as a business tool, because especially when you get to executive levels, it's one of the real accelerants that differentiates you and continues to open doors. So that's one piece of it. But the really big piece of it, especially for executive women, is they reach these higher and higher levels. It gets lonelier and lonelier and lonelier because there are fewer and fewer women who've had that success.
That feeling of isolation that Deb is highlighting is unfortunately heightened for everyone during the COVID-19 era.
Technology is a great thing, with limits. Right? And I said that long before COVID, so that's not a new statement for me. And for those that know me, will say, oh yeah, we've heard you say that. But I think COVID really brought it to the forefront that we can stay connected through technology. We can have these Zooms, we can, bring people together, we can continue to get the work done. And we are passionate about the work. So we still enjoy doing the work, but people are realizing there's this huge gap. It's like still so much is missing. Well, what's missing, technology cannot take the place of or replicate what happens in a human-to-human interaction when you're in similar space. So I talk about it with the executives. You're really missing the water cooler dialogue. You're missing walking down the hall, crossing somebody, having eye contact, not a word is said, but you have that smirk and you both know exactly what you're thinking. It's those things that actually tie you together and give you value and worth in the relationship that's making the work better. So now it's just the work, and that's good, it's productive, but it's leaving a gaping hole in what really makes people tick. And what they're realizing is the humanity. It's the humanity that makes the relationships really work.
And it's that same belief in humanity that has Deb dialed into the country's work in the aftermath of the murder of George Floyd.
I think we have an incredible opportunity like we've never had before. And I think it's working in tandem with COVID because so many people are unemployed. That people are stopping and they're reflecting. And I hope this is our opportunity to finally start to make change in systemic racism. I always tell people, and I tell students this, everyone has a gift to give to the world. And everyone thinks it's their skills, their talents, everything. I said, no, it's just a little part of it. Your gift is your perception of the world. Because everybody's perception of the world is uniquely different. And it is built upon all the experiences in their lives, from childhood all the way up. So if I am growing up in a perspective from very early childhood, where everything in my life is a barrier, everything is a struggle, everything is a working exponentially harder to get an inch than someone else who is coming from a different perspective without those barriers is just leap bounding by. I start to have animosity about that. Why? Why don't I have that opportunity? The more we start to address that fundamental disparity, the greater the country we're going to be. The more that we truly embrace the diversity of thought, diversity of talent, and all those things, if we start to make that incremental change at the start of life, and you put that through and project that through a lifetime, you want to talk about empowering a country of influencers and givers and all that talent. We've never tapped into that. We've always put barriers in place. Education, housing, opportunity in business, how we loan money. I can go on and on and on about all the different disparities. And you start to crack the egg on those, you are going to start to see some unbelievable change in the most positive way possible.
I'm wondering what gives you hope, and what does progress look like for you right now, just in the midst of the world we're living in and the work you're doing?
I got caught up and trapped in a thinking that if I didn't change the world, that what I was doing was less than. And I had some people, investors, they always want big and better, and how many thousands, are you impacting? And that's a trapped thought, because in reality, if I change one life, one step at a time, I have done an incredible amount of work. And the ability to look at it in that perspective, and I've had a lot of executives talking to me about this, and I've been telling them the same thing, because the George Floyd thing really upset them. And it really had them thinking about things differently, and how can they do something in a mass way? I said, you don't need to do something in a mass way. If everybody takes the responsibility to just change the trajectory in life of one person, we will have changed the world.
And in fact, if we take that mass, value approach, oftentimes we miss the mark. It becomes some giant technical fix. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I so enjoyed it, Deb, and in the midst of some difficult, troubling times in this country, but also some heartening times in the work we're seeing. I so appreciate you being a part of this conversation. Thank you for joining us on the show this week.
It was a pleasure joining you, DJ, and I want to leave you with this thought.
Please.
As troubling as the times are, this is really some of the most hopeful time we've ever been, because you've got to see the bad before you can go towards it. And we needed this. We needed this to really make change. So I'm excited about that.
Welcome back to the Late Night Desk. And again, a big thank you to Deb Richards for joining me in that interview. I think there's so much to break down here tonight. A reminder that if you'd like more conversation when we wrap up this show in just a few minutes, hop on the Zoom line. Julian Montes, as always, is monitoring our chat and keep an eye on all the technology, and he will be more than happy to post that link so that you can join us in our Zoom room. We'll go for 15, 20, maybe 30 minutes max, but it's always fun to break down the conversation for the night and see what's kind of sticking with people, what's hitting people. For me, this idea that your perception of the world, your perspective is your gift, has really been sitting with me all week, right? Because that is a beautiful sentiment, and yet I think that it's also a sentiment that sometimes gets human beings in trouble, right? When we have a limited perception, a limited perspective, gets us in deep trouble. And what Deb is suggesting is that as we continue to expand our perception, understand others, value our experiences, but also value the experiences of others, that's life-changing. Not only for one life, but I think it's progress overall. It's what the Kansas Leadership Center strives for, that we might be an organization that reaches some sort of tipping point in this state, in this country, in this world. And the work that Deb Richards is doing beyond golf, for golf, and out in the world is just amazing. And I'm very thankful for that introduction. If you saw a little haze down here, Wrigley, the Weimaraner, made a visit to Leadership Late Night there. That's the beauty of live Facebook action, as it were. That said, again, just a big thank you to Deb Richards. I want to get to your comments tonight. We're going to read through some of your comments, but always as a reminder, if you'd like to hear more stories like ones we just shared about Deb, if you'd like to learn more about how leadership is being applied in the state of Kansas and beyond, I really encourage you to check out klcjournal.com. One of the articles up this week I'd love to point your way is the pandemic and the effect it's having on local news within the state. And I really think it's something that could probably expand beyond this state. But take a look, and as always, you can find more stories, written forms from some of the great writers on the KLC staff and beyond, run by managing editor Chris Green at klcjournal.com. So I really hope you'll take some time to check that out sometime this week. Well, time to get to your comments. Let's take a look at what's sitting with people tonight, and so much going on. Amanda Sabula on the line tonight. Thanks for watching, Amanda. And she says, in order to be successful in golf, you must be present. Seems relevant to everything. Yeah, absolutely, right? This idea that being relevant, and there's no such thing as perfection, very relevant on the golf course, and as Deb told us, very relevant in life. I played on Sunday, as I mentioned. I've been playing a little more golf recently. Not during the work week, Ed, I promise. I joke about that, but not during the work week. You know I'm right here. But my brother-in-law told me recently, it's a great line that somebody told him. He said, you're not good enough at golf to be that upset about that shot. And so I've been living in that moment lately, and actually been playing a little bit better. And Deb mentioned that. She's a champion. She's a 5-time LPGA champion. She's a collegiate champion, a USAM champion, and telling you, you can strive for perfect, but it's only going to set you back in some ways. So I think there's something beautiful about that within leadership as well, that it's about progress. And just appreciate that tonight. Seth Bate weighing in. If I am fully present in an experience, I am not only giving the best of myself, it's also the most fulfilling. The greatest thing you can do is be fully there. Yeah, resonating with Amanda as well. Kami Akavan on the line tonight. And Kami was a guest, of course, from the USC Dornsiff Center for the Political Future at USC, obviously the USC Center. And he virtually introduced me to Deb, our guest tonight. So Kami, great to have you on the line tonight. And just reminding us that everyone has a gift to give the world. It's your perspective. Yeah, definitely sitting with me as well, Kami. Robin Eubanks Callis, if I have changed one life, ... Yeah, how about that? We make it very hard sometimes. What's our next initiative going to be that changes the world? Look, maybe it's a little cliche, but I think it's also true that one little piece of the work, one step at a time, done the right way is how we'll make this change. And I think we're starting to see that is even in the aftermath of the horrendous death of George Floyd, more people are involved this time. All right, more people are involved, and there's more diversity in the story of those that are involved, and that's important. We have to keep that work up. And just a really interesting observation by Deb that perhaps COVID-19, high unemployment rates, not something we ever want, but it's interesting that those all may have intersected on that. Ed O'Malley's watching tonight. Not during the week, Ed. Never golf during the week. A few others weighing in. One person at a time really impacted them. And how about Mary Toller on the line tonight? And in working to help change one life, we find ourselves changed. Absolutely. Fascinated to see the comments tonight. So many people, I just met Deb recently, but it's clear from the comments, so many people impacted by Deb Richards over the years. And we've got a lot of good K-Staters. I happen to be a Jayhawk, but so many good K-Staters connected to KLC, connected to the Staley School of Leadership, and also checking in tonight, and I'm thankful for that. Well, that'll do it for our show. I hope you'll make the transition over to our Zoom room for a little more conversation for those that want to debrief live in a space online, virtually. But other than that, it is time for my kiddos to go to bed. It's time for us to wrap up this show. And so as always, we end with our moments of hope. So do stick around for that. But first I say, Addison Parker, good night.
Good night, Dad. Happy Father's Day. Make sure to go check out Dad's after party on Zoom.